We are honored to have with us today Congresswoman DeGette and Congressman Upton, the lead sponsors of the 21st Century Cures Act. Congresswoman DeGette has represented Colorado's 1st congressional district since 1997. She serves on 2 committees, the Committee on Energy and Commerce and the Committee on Natural Resources. She is chair of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. And in this role, she is responsible for overseeing several federal agencies, including the Department of Health and Human Services, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Food and Drug Administration. Congresswoman DeGette has championed healthcare issues throughout her time in Congress, and we look forward to hearing about her work. Congressman Upton has represented Southwestern Michigan since 1987. He was chair of the Committee on Energy and Commerce from 2010 to 2016, and he currently serves as the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Energy. He is also a member of the Subcommittee on Health and the Subcommittee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. Congressman Upton has long advocated for biomedical research and advancement during his time in Congress. Congresswoman DeGette and Congressman Upton are currently leading a Cures 2.0 initiative to continue advancing on the successes of the 21st Century Cures Act and to continue promoting health innovation across the country. NCCN would like to thank both of you for your efforts in Congress advancing medical innovation, and are honored to welcome you to our summit today. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Cliff.
Great, thanks very much, Bob. And it is our honor, as well my honor, to welcome Congresswoman DeGette and Congressman Upton to this discussion. For our audience, FYI, this session will go to about 15 minutes after the hour. That's 4:15 Eastern time. At about 5 minutes after the hour, 4:05 Eastern, we'll go to questions and answers. And so if you want to queue up a question leading into 5 minutes after the hour, we'll be glad to accept that. I just want to jump right in, starting with Congresswoman DeGette and then Congressman Upton. What inspired you to do this, the 21st Century Cure Act? What in 21st Century Cures Act arose from some impetus, some trigger, some prompting? What made you say this is something I want to lead? Congresswoman?
Well, thanks for having both me and Fred. And I don't do this very often, but I'm going to punt that question to Fred, because when we started doing 21st Century Cures, he was the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and he actually was the one who recruited me. So Fred, I'm punting. You know, Fred and I have been doing this so long that we have a system, and we have to go by that system. So Fred.
Well accepted, and I appreciate now the order about how that happened. So it makes all perfect sense. Thank you, Congressman.
Let me just say, Diana, I couldn't have asked for a better partner. It was our elbows that got folks to the table. We had a lot of words with a lot of people. I mean, I can tell you, and at some point, if Paul Ryan ever writes a book, he may talk about the time where I actually grabbed him without his Secret Service protection by his collar in the cloakroom and threw him against the wall. I was so angry about not being able to move forward with the pay-fors and everything else that we did. But it was real collaboration. Frankly, it's how everyone in America wants us to work. And to answer your question, and I would have been delighted to defer to my friend Diana. She came to my district, I went to hers. We've done a lot of things together over the years, lots of stories, really good staff. And I heard just the tail end there of Clay and some others who really helped us neophytes know really what the answers were. But, you know, you look at the talent of someone like Francis Collins, and we're so glad that he continues to do the job, and I can talk a long time about what he's doing now with this pandemic. But probably what drove us to this thing was when we first got, at least for me, when I first got on Energy and Commerce, I was fortunate to get on the Health Subcommittee. And when you're on that subcommittee, you see every walk of life, and it just breaks your heart, some of these diseases that come through. It was like, what can we do? It was Newt Gingrich, when he was speaker, asked me to step up, and I was the Republican lead with Waxman and McCain and Paul Wellstone to double the money for the NIH back in '96. And we did that, and it was enormously successful, but then everything just stayed.
Yeah.
When you look at these miracle cures, I mean, we call them miracles because we didn't have a cure before. But you see what happens with cystic fibrosis. You see what people that are blind. You see what's advancements with cancer. We all have family. I think we all have family members that have cancer. I've got a number of survivors from my mom to other very close people in my inner circle of family. When you see these things, and then of course when you travel a little bit, and I have not traveled a lot, but you go to places that don't have decent health care or electricity or running water and all those things, you just think, how fortunate are we that we have the resources to do this, to really save the world? And that really was the inspiration, I think, that Diane and I, with those shared experiences, say, what can we do to make a difference? And we coupled it with a lot of things, and we need it every day. And we needed Thanksgiving Day after turkey, and we have this thing called whiskey sours that we make, and I had to slow that down a little bit with our family. We need it every day, and really it was the last bill truly that President Obama signed into law, and he was proud of it. And it was hailed. Other people said this. Mitch McConnell. We had great Lamar Alexander and others. Patty Murray, Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer. Again, Paul Ryan really started with Boehner because it took us 3 years. Kevin McCarthy. The list is long, but we put together the coalition to get it done, and we are in such a better spot today because of COVID, because of this bill. And frankly, that was. I'll close here and let Diana say as much as she wants. But one of Diana's big elements that we put in this, we had an instant agreement, was on these trials. Before, they were just siloed. You couldn't talk. Universities, they couldn't talk to each other. And by opening up that communication, we're able to expedite the approvals then of drugs and devices. And that's just as important. And we will get a vaccine and all these different things because of the work, the groundwork that we did on cures, maybe a year or two faster. And that includes the testing stuff. And I can talk about that too, but let me yield. My time has expired, so let me yield to my good colleague and henchman.
Well, you can see Fred and I have a great working relationship. And I think one reason Fred came to me was because increasingly people were recognizing some of the deficiencies in the way we do research in this country from the NIH and then drug and device approval at the FDA. And he knew I had a reputation of working on complex issues in a bipartisan way. So, we immediately forged this partnership, and we decided right away that we would listen to all of the stakeholders. That meant the patient community, the research community, the agencies themselves, to find out what they needed. And Fred talked about his encounter with Paul Ryan towards the end of the process while we were trying to pass the bill. But I remember at the beginning of the process, Fred and I were meeting with Francis Collins in Fred's hideaway, and we said, Dr. Collins, what do you need here? What do you need in your agency to expedite the way we do research? And Francis said, well, I really think you need to allow my young researchers to go to meetings. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, several years earlier, the researchers had been banned from going to meetings because one researcher somewhere had an ethical lapse. And so they were telling all of these researchers they couldn't go to conferences and meetings. And Fred and I said, look, Francis, we will fix that in this bill. But if that's the only thing we do, then we will have failed, because we want to have systemic structural change. So we did let the researchers go to the meetings, but we did a lot more.
Well, it's listening to both of you, it sounds as though constituent input had a lot to do with this. Your respective constituents were being heard by you. It also sounds as though you were proactive, not reactive, to gain input from the agency leads, Francis
Right.
Collins and others.
Right.
So
I mean, you know, we met with, oh, I don't know how many, Fred, hundreds of stakeholders and interest groups, talking about the various barriers they saw or the needs they had. And as you say, also the agencies, they're the ones who know best. But also we looked at places where they needed more resources too. So it's not, I mean, the bill was 350 pages of structural changes, but then it was what, $6.2 billion in money targeted at specific programs. The Joe Biden's cancer moonshot, the brain initiative, all of these issues, precision medicine, all of these issues that needed funding over at the NIH. So we spent, that's why it took us 3 years.
wow. You know, listening to both of you, and of course, watching a lot of our members of Congress speak about what's going on these days and so forth, I gotta say, it sounds like you both got a kick out of doing this. It sounds like this is like a better part of the job, right? To go out and listen to your constituents and kind of ask for information from stakeholders and agency heads. That sounds like a good side of the coin for the jobs that you do. Congressman Upton, is that
Well,
true?
Call me Fred from the start, but yeah, we learned a lot. I mean, we went on the road. I mean, not only did we have the hearings, but we went to something a little bit different. We had round tables because I didn't want people to be limited to 5 minutes and to really walk through an exercise. And so we had a number of round tables. We also enlisted literally every member of our committee. We said, what's important? Tell us. You know, I went up to Penn State. You know, I looked at some of the health stuff that they did. I went to Texas. I went a lot of places, and so did other colleagues, and we listened. You know, going to Denver was a lot of fun. My son wasn't there now. He's now a permanent constituent, Diane. He just bought a house.
Good.
He and his wife. But, you know, we really did listen and learn. And folks but all the groups were so important too. The frustration they had forever and a day.
Wow.
Now, you know, just in the 3 years that it's been, or 4 since President Obama signed it into law, look at changes. I mean, cystic fibrosis. Look at sickle cell. Look at, you know, the cancer. I tell you, Michael Milken really helped us out a lot in the investment that he's made into this, and the research and the conferences that he does. And, it was really wonderful to have us work like this jigsaw puzzle, putting the pieces together. And at the end of the day, I think we got it.
You did. So Fred, thanks for that. And then back to Diana, if I may, what is it? We're so kind of obsessed and sort of sometimes overwhelmed with partisanship. What are the attributes of an issue, a policy issue, that engenders bipartisanship? Drawing perhaps from this instance, like what makes bipartisanship work as opposed to so often it doesn't?
Well, I've thought about this a lot, and I've spoken about it too. And what I think is too many people see bipartisanship as a goal unto itself, rather than a method to get to a goal. So what I think is you need to, and one of the reasons why I try to do as much as I can in a bipartisan way is you look and see what's the issue that you want to work on, and then you try to see, and generally, at least for people like me and Fred, the issues we want to work on are issues that impact everybody, not just Democrats or Republicans or unaffiliated. So then you say, okay, what's the issue I want to do? Where can we find common ground? And I want to tell you, Fred will agree, that we didn't agree on every single thing in this bill. And we had some moments of tension and disagreement. But what we did was we had a broader vision of doing a large bill that would revamp the NIH and the FDA. And so we worked through the divisions we had, and I think we had a better product because of that. A lot of times when you pass partisan legislation, one party writes that legislation, and then it's take it or leave it. So I actually, and I will say, I think there's more bipartisanship than people realize. And I think if the institution and the leadership allows you to do it, most of the bills that we pass can be bipartisan. Don't you think so, Fred?
Well, I do. And, you know, one of the things that I set the tone early when I became chairman, I said, and I relied on my past chairman, whether it be John Dingell, one of my very best friends, obviously from Michigan. We did a lot of things together, and his widow, and now serves on the committee, Debbie. And, but, you know, Henry Waxman, and I went to all the chairmen, and Billy Tozan, and I changed the rules of our committee, and to the credit of Greg Walden, my successor, and Frank Malone. We do bipartisan amendments first. That's part of the process. That's part of the drill. When you're the subcommittee chair or the full committee chair and you do a markup, are there bipartisan amendments? And that encourages Republicans and Democrats to get together. And you name the issue. And I'll tell you, when you have someone, they're all friends of mine. You take a Dave McKinley from West Virginia, and you take a Welch from Vermont, lefty and a righty, and they work together on an amendment, and it's done. There's nobody left on the fringes. You get it done, and they're good people, and we have respect. You know, particularly, you know, all of our members. I mean, when we passed this bill 51-0, but I tell you, if we had the vote 2 days before, we would have lost a lot of people. we got the glue out. We got everyone working in sync to understand what it was, and but you have a trust. You work together, and the staff really worked well too on both sides of the aisle. And you know, thank goodness again we had Lamar Alexander, and he was tied up with his higher education. That's his baby, and he said, as long as you don't cross these lines, whatever you guys do, count me in. And he was good to his word as he worked with McConnell and Patty Murray too.
Wow.
And then also we had great cooperation from the White House. We incorporated Vice President Biden's Cancer Moonshot Initiative into the bill, and they helped us out quite a bit.
Now, Diana, Fred said something about which I hope you can reflect, which kind of caught me off guard. We're obviously in an environment where, in the COVID environment, where a lot of blame is being thrown in certain directions about our not having been sufficiently prepared. We weren't ready for this, we weren't ready for that. Fred said a few minutes ago that actually the work you did on 21st century cures is helping us now in COVID. There are things that you put in the cures that actually set us up better as opposed to worse to cope with the pandemic. Do you concur?
Certainly the areas that Fred's talking about within the FDA, the ability to do the clinical clinical trials in a much more directed way has really enabled them, the FDA, to work with the researchers to be able to craft these trials so that they're much more nimble and that they'll be done much more quickly. I will say I'm the chair this Congress of the Oversight Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce. And so it's our job to do a lot of this oversight on some of the issues where there have been criticisms of the administration, issues like testing, issues like preparedness of the stockpile and PPE. And so you can see how, and so those are different issues from the research issues that Fred and I are talking about. You can see how these issues would quickly get very politicized. But I've been working very closely with my Republican ranking member, Congressman Brett Guthrie, on these issues. And actually, we have developed an oversight plan, and we're doing robust oversight. Our first hearing that we had last week, we swear our witnesses under oath, was on testing, and we had 3 governors at that hearing. And we're not always going to agree, but what we do agree, and I think Fred will agree with this too, is look, if there were lapses on the part of this administration or the last administration, we need to get to the bottom of what those lapses are. Why didn't we have a more robust national stockpile? Why was the initial testing that was done at the CDC flawed. We need to find out about those things, because if we have another surge in the fall or even sooner, we have to figure out how to be prepared for that. And you can do those things in a way that's bipartisan. And so far, Congressman Guthrie and I are really able to cooperate on that. I think a lot of it is a matter of tone.
Well, Cures certainly sets a great pattern for bipartisanship in the area of health and epidemiology and so forth. And again, Fred, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I, for one, hadn't made the connection between cures and being in certain ways better prepared for COVID. Any further comment on that, Fred?
Well, I just want to say, remember under the old scheme, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, thousands of people, results, all of that. University of Denver couldn't speak to the University of Michigan and, all these different groups. Just couldn't do it. Privacy, all those things. So we changed that. And so, I look at, so to me, I'm a Cubs fan. I'm actually really happy. People are going to smile when I tell the story. Cubs are on every night. You think baseball's over? No, they're on every night. We beat Denver 2 nights ago, by the way. Diana, she's a ticket holder. We have won 2 divisions in the last week. Sammy Sosa is still in the lineup. He hit 6 home runs in 2 days. I mean,
what a comeback.
Oh, man, it's the 9th inning stuff. And you know what? Every game's over by 11 o'clock. I mean, it is like clockwork. Ivy is fully green, but so I'm an optimist, all right? And it did finally happen. Cubs finally won, but I'm an optimist. So I actually see us today, with some light at the end of the COVID tunnel. It has been tough. It's been really tough here in Michigan. I knew well the first person that died in my home county. His picture's been on my desk for years, Vietnam vet. We've had two direct family ties to my staff that died because of COVID. So to get there, we got to have testing, and we got to have therapeutics, and we have to have a vaccine. And I'll tell you, one of the things, and a lot of people don't know this, but the last bill that the president signed in April, it was, a big argument or a big debate was PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program to help small businesses, $310 billion. But in that also was $1.8 billion for the NIH. And Francis Collins, the guy that, Diane and I trust like to the end of the earth, he, in 48 hours, put together a framework with his top people to really look at home testing. And the president signed it on Friday. By Monday, they were fully in business. And last night, I heard from one of these entities, and they've got a device. They need the venture capital. This is going to be it if it works. It's a device about the size of a cell phone. And they call it a Shark Tank now at NIH, but they're passing all the tests. And this, if it works, and I think, it's passed already, but it will measure the antibodies from saliva or blood prior to getting, once you're exposed, prior to showing any symptoms, you'll be able to link it to your cell phone, and it's under $10, minutes for the test. And wherever you go, whether it's the U.S. Capitol or the Ford assembly line or the bagel shop or, you name it, the gas station, you can show someone you're green. You've been tested, or school, you're tested, and okay. And it's going to be, so that's one step.
Sure.
The vaccine, we now have 4 or 5 companies that are well into a phase 2, but they're starting to ramp up production so that as Dr. Fauci, who again is a good friend, a long time, decades to both of us, 100 million doses ready to go before the end of the year on a vaccine that hasn't even been approved yet. You can imagine that we'll see hopefully a couple of EUAs, emergency use authorizations, in place so that we can get to that final stage. And so there is light at the end of this COVID tunnel, and in large part because of the steps that we did to get this bill passed.
So great point. So Cures 1.0 put some things in place that we didn't even know we're going to have a payoff in a pandemic. Essentially, the various examples you gave sort of compress the timeline to go from an overriding need to a breakthrough that's validated. So carrying on with that, Diana, looking at Cures 2.0, what are your priorities as you see them for Cures 2.0 at this point?
So, of course, the minute we passed the original Cures bills, we started talking about some of the deficiencies that, or not deficiencies, but the places we could have been more robust and done better in the original Cures bill. And so about a month ago, Fred and I released a concept paper of some of the issues we think would be important to address. Some of the big data issues, some of the patient-centered issues, and we have several different ideas in this, and also reforming CMS so that when we do find some kind of a breakthrough drug or device, that people can actually get payment in their Medicare payment to be able to use these new technologies and drugs. So we issued a concept paper, and it's just like with the original Cures bill. We're now taking comments on that. We've had over 500 comments on it and ideas. And then we expect that we will be taking those into account, releasing a discussion draft of the bill soon, I think, this summer, and then developing final legislation with hopes of passing it. And there's a number of provisions, but let me just, since we're talking about COVID, there's a couple of provisions that we realized when we were coming up with our concept paper that could actually apply right now. And one of them is improving surveillance and testing capabilities, like Fred was just saying, with being able to track people on the cell phones, supporting antimicrobial resistance product commercialization and vaccines, digital health services, improving patients' data rights. So you make sure if patients are giving their data that they preserve their rights over that data and that they preserve their privacy. And then other issues, a lot of these issues, we have contacted Speaker Pelosi's office and also Chairman Pallone to see if we could get some of these provisions included in COVID-related legislation going forward, because we think that they're so self-evident that we could pass them now.
You know, it's interesting, Diana, that some of the things, actually just about all the things that you just rattled off would have been raised earlier today by some of our researchers and national experts and so forth. So you're listening to each other, which is great. Fred, do you want to add anything so far as what you anticipate or you expect for 2.0?
Well, yeah, just a couple of things. One, you know, Diana's right. I agree with everything that she said. You know, the diversity issue is one that troubles all of us. Mm-hmm. Why is it that African Americans have a much higher incidence than Caucasian? I mean, why? We need to find out. And of course, looking back at the last number of decades, we knew that even on breast cancer research, it was often men that were studied instead of women, things that just, you know, to a non-scientist, how does this happen? So there's a number of things that we can do there. But also, you know, how are our lives going to change because of what's happened the last 100-some days? Well, it's broadband. It's a whole number of different things. I was on a call with a urologist 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they had a wonderful researcher or a doctor in the Bronx, and she said, "I don't want people coming here. We're the bad area in the country right now. I can do this online with people and make recommendations. They don't necessarily have to come to my office." And yet so many places across the country, certainly rural, but even in urban areas, don't have access to broadband. And so that high-speed internet is, you're going to see us work on that. Jim Clyburn has been a really good friend. He and I have teamed up together. So stay tuned even this month, perhaps, as we move forward. But, you know, it's no good if you find a cure for something and find out that nobody can pay for it.
Right.
Good
And
to
we-
hear about your connection with Clyburn and that looking at the telehealth. Yes.
Yeah, Jim's a super guy, and of course, we know what he did for Joe Biden. But I was on the super committee with Jim. We're good friends. We've been to Selma together. Diana's been down there as well for the Edmund Pettus Bridge Walk with John Lewis, things that tie us together. And, those relationships are important as we look at 2.0. And, as much as we wanted to do it all this year, and we sort of laid this out last summer, the legislative schedule with, we haven't been in but 3 or 4 days really, and our legislative schedules getting scrambled pretty much. This is why it's important that you have member dialogue, trust, and involvement with each other, because that helps move it. And we may run out of time for some of the full package of what we want to do, but maybe we can get some of this done in one of these COVID packages that moves forward still this legislative year without probably a lot of legislative days left.
Yep. We've had a couple.
No, sorry, it's been out of our control that we just haven't been there.
Right.
We all have we all have things we want to work on, and I'm on my side porch.
Understood. We've had a couple of questions come in, and one of them was actually raised earlier, but this has to do with two things that could be in either the new COVID legislation or Cures 2.0. One of them is rare diseases. Fred, you made the comment about cystic fibrosis, and I mean, that's a shining, stellar example.
Yeah.
What else could we do in the area of rare diseases, whether it's clinical trials or other support for innovation or access? So rare diseases. And the other one is cancer specific, and that is there's often a gap in cancer clinical trials and drug development between the pediatric population and the adult. So it's the teens and young adults where there's sometimes a gap there. So I don't know if either of you wants to comment on either of those two issues, on that cancer gap for trials for that tween group, as well as the rare diseases. How can we push that further?
Diane, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can start, and then I'll
Right,
go back clean up.
Okay, Fred?
So kids to adults. We saw this with Duchenne's. The FDA, this was 3 years ago, and thank goodness the Wall Street Journal was with us. We got the administration to finally move forward, but I mean, this was a blockbuster. Same thing with CF, and 90%. We're not done yet because there's still an element. The drug doesn't work its will, so don't quit. But those rare diseases, again, they break your heart. We all, we see these folks come in and just breaks your heart, particularly when they're kids. You see some of the ads too on TV and the wonderful work that some of these organizations do, particularly on the cancer side. And, as we all have experiences, what is it that we can do for more research dollars? What is it that we can do to speed those trials up? And I think you'll see, a rare disease portion element of 2.0 to make sure that it is a priority and it's not forgotten.
So we will see that. Good. Diana?
Yeah, well, I think I think that in the original Cures bill, we had some provisions on real world evidence and data aggregation, which we don't think have been fleshed out enough. We've talked a lot to Janet Woodcock about this and others over at the FDA. And so what we want to do is we really want to try to figure out how to establish a framework to use real world evidence and a task force to get patients to participate in this. But if we're really able to get the kind of data generation that we need, along with the privacy protections and everything else I talked about earlier, that's really going to be able to help us get a lot of the data that we need for some of these rare diseases, and then allow us to be able to do some of that research. And this is what you saw. This is what you saw with cystic fibrosis and some other diseases like that. And so I think that can be really very, very useful.
Good. Diana, you mentioned, by the way, the concept paper. We had a question come in. Can people still access the concept paper and provide further input? What guidance do you have?
Absolutely. And so what we can do, do you know the website offhand, Fred?
I don't, but we can get that to you.
NCCN, I think NCCN staff has it.
Yeah.
That's where we should go. They can find it for folks.
You probably can find it on my website someplace.
Oh, okay.
And we put it online back in March.
Oh, so we can go to your website.
Yep.
We'll go to Congressman
Should
Upton's
be able
website.
to find.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So if it comes down to a real specific now, for Cures 2.0, first Congressman Upton and then Congresswoman DeGette, what is the best bet for a big breakthrough or a big step in Cures 2.0? What should we be looking for, in your opinion, that's going to differentiate 2.0 from 1.0? There may be several things, but could you kind of give us a little inside baseball and say, hey, just watch out for this? What might that be, Congressman?
A blockbuster. I mean, we did a lot of really good things. We continue to listen. You know, the CMS stuff is important. The rare disease is really important. You know, the telehealth, you know, where we're headed is real important, and you're going to see advances that are there. So I think those are going to be the big elements that we do. But you know, it continues to bring us together and talk about, you know, so many times there's no time to smell the roses. You do a big issue and you never, you know, it's just gone. It continues to tell us, I mean, just the story today that we're so much better off as we deal with this than we would have been had it hit us. And you need, I mean, you all in the community need to help us because, you know, I dropped chemistry in my sophomore year at Michigan. I didn't have the time for the lab work, so I went to journalism. So it's you all. I mean, spending time with Nobel Prize winners, so like we've done, listening to them in terms of some of the things that we can do, and we've done that. To have them come testify, to see the real life examples of the survivors of these diseases, and to see the joy that they and their families now have because they've got an opportunity to live maybe a normal life that they didn't have even 5 years ago. To watch the advances really come, and you know, credit to those researchers and you know, saving the world.
So
saving the world, not bad.
Couple of things. Number one, my staff reminds me that the concept paper is also on my website, and your staff has very thoughtfully posted that link on the chat room that your viewers can see. It's right there. And I will also say that I think that the real blockbusters that you're going to see from Cures 2.0, I agree with Fred, of course, that this is really an extension of the original Cures bill to try to make it even better and to refine it. But I think the real world evidence concepts are going to be really key, and also the CMS section, because as I said, we've heard a lot of frustration in Cures. For example, we extended this really important breakthrough therapies concept to devices, but I don't care if it's a drug or a device. If you can't get approval for payment, if you can't afford to pay for it, then it's not going to have any therapeutic use to you at all. So I think those are going to be the two kind of blockbuster components of the legislation.
Well, let's look for those, and that's great. And thanks for making the announcement about the website connection to the concept paper. People still want to provide comments to both of you. So whether it's via the concept paper,
and we want them.
Good. So I hope everybody in our audience heard that. Well, this has been such a wonderful session. We appreciate your generosity. And I got to say, I'm personally very glad that Congressman Upton wrote Congresswoman DeGette into the Cures in the first place, 1.0. And gosh, if Congress could get along and be as productive and as insightful as the two of you, I think we'd all be much better off. And we're still gosh, we're also going to be depending upon you too in your leadership roles and all the enthusiasm and energy that you bring to really bring it yet again, even better for Cures 2.0. And we hope that our community that's been listening to you today will continue to provide input. And even more important, if you could repeat what you did before insofar as being great listeners and proactive in eliciting information from all the stakeholders, all to the better. So thank you, Congressman Fred Upton from Michigan. Thank you, Congresswoman Diana DeGette from Colorado. You've been great so much. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you. Thanks for giving us a soapbox.
We loved it.
Yep.
And I'm now going to turn it back over to Jeff Allen and Ron Walters. Gentlemen.
Jeff, you go first.
All right, thank you, Ron. And I'll add my thanks to Congresswoman DeGette and Congressman Upton and to NCCN for just a terrific day. It's been such a pleasure to be part of this working group that hopefully helped to chart a course forward for our community to come together and provide various recommendations to two terrific leaders and their fantastic staff who, over the years, every time you hear the two of them speak and their bipartisan commitment to move things forward, it's always inspiring. And so I thank NCCN for facilitating that today. And I hope that for all of us who had the chance to be on this working group and for all of you who joined the meeting today, that we can stay band together to help them achieve the goals that are so important to the communities that we all represent. So thanks very much to NCCN. Thank you to my fellow working group members. To Lee and the team, you've done a terrific job, and it's been a real pleasure to be part of this initiative. Ron?
Thank you. I'm going to put on my chair of the board hat a second for NCCN. I told you when we started this morning that the theme of this was going to be, there's been a lot done and there's still a lot more to do. And I think that's what you heard throughout the day. There's a number of very good things that have come out of the Cures Act already. But I think especially the last discussion you heard, there's people who really do want to make it better and improve on it and put some things in that they just didn't have the first time around. So I look, there's still 188 participants on, and we very much appreciate you hanging on this long. I know it's hard enough to sit in the National Press Club all day, but it really takes a lot more to sit at your chair online and participate in these seminars when they're done virtually. Please fill out the survey. The survey is very important to us getting information back about how we can do things better at NCCN, and your opinion is your opinion. All it has to be is honest, and tell us what you thought about today. I again would like to echo Bob and his wonderful policy staff. I mean, Lee did a lot of the work, but all of the policy staff members contributed and are responsible for what you just put together and saw. The great work group that we had, the speakers that you heard today were absolutely fabulous. And I hope you're leaving with a, maybe not a Cubs analogy, that can get a little bit dicey, but a hope at least that there are people who are working on continuing the work and improving the work. And we have every reason to believe that 5 years from now, things are even going to be better than they are today. So thank you again for participating. And Bob, did you have anything you want to say, or is this it?
I got to unmute myself here, Ron. No, I just want to echo what everyone else has already said. The leadership that Jeff and Ron showed on the working group was superb. The working group itself was just really an outstanding experience, and as you can see, they came up with a great list of principles and recommendations. All the speakers today were fantastic. It was wonderful to have Congresswoman DeGette, Congressman Upton with us. We really appreciate their participation. We really appreciate all of your audience participation as well. And as I want to echo as well, kudos to Lee Gallo, who organized the working group for us and organized the summit, and to all of the members of the policy team that have participated. And let's not forget our meetings group, who has managed to have a whole 4 hours of a Zoom meeting with not a single glitch that I saw. So thank you for organizing us in that way as well. And with that, and a special thanks also to Cliff Goodman, who always does such a superb job. And this is the first time we've worked with Cliff on a Zoom meeting, and he rose to the occasion. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll close. Thank you.